Like, this is a vision and this is actions. And they see this gap between them and they're like, unacceptable. So then at that point, then they have some choices. They can say, like, that's some bullshit and I don't want it anyway, which a lot of people do. A lot of people say, and it's ridiculous. Or they can say, like, what you're giving and what you're offering is not valuable. Obviously it is. We not only like biologically give life, but we like raise your fucking children. And low key, you know, if you raised your children on your own, they'd be pieces of shit. Yeah. I just got a little bit emphatic, but I'll calm it down. So like, obviously they know that they need us. They know that we give them a lot of things, like always having fizzy water in the fridge, having a clean kitchen. And even if you're a woman who doesn't do those things or doesn't offer those things or whatever, like, there is a comfort that comes with women, and it is born into us. No matter how assertive or masculine or whatever you are, there is a warmth, there is a connectiveness, there's a comfort with connection that men do not feel comfortable with, that they cannot offer each other, that they cannot offer themselves. And so I think that men are low-key like mad at us for
needing us so much.
Yeah. You said it better than I was about to. Way better than I was about to. And way more concise. Yes. For needing us. They're mad at needing us. And so they take it out on us, which is ridiculous. The only reason they're able to get away with it is because of the way that the world is played out. I think they're challenged by asking to give something. I think that they're challenged by being expected to give something. I think they're challenged by us asking them to give them something, to give us something, I mean, etc. So I think that men are deeply, deeply, deeply uncomfortable with like the soul of a woman. And that is all women. It is trans women. It's masculine women. It's all of the women. There is a feeling, a vulnerability, I guess. There's a vulnerability about women that make men feel deeply, deeply uncomfortable. And they can either, and in my opinion, they have a choice. They can like rise to the occasion and they can be vulnerable with us, which is really fucking scary and deeply uncomfortable. Or they can be like, you're shitty for being that way. I'm going to keep being my own way.
And like, I do agree that it's like a gender, like I do agree that gender is like the base issue. I think every race of man is essentially like that, because it's not like, hypothetically, if the roles were reversed and white men were no longer in charge, I don't think non-black men of any non-white men, rather, of any race, Black, Hispanic, whatever, Asian, whatever race they are, I don't think they would necessarily do anything so much different. And then even
hell no.
Right. And then one of the issues that I see even for Black people in the Black community is, it's not even with Black men. It's not that they want Black people, the Black race, whatever, to be on top or equal rights. They want what white men have. They want the power that white men have. And they would leave Black women in the dust and in a quick second if they could be to have white men's positions, which is why they're so obsessed with white women. It's not necessarily that they actually care for white women, it's that they care about the status, because their obsession is about white men. That's the true obsession.
Yes.
So that makes it a gender issue.
Yes.
And not because black men put maleness. When the opportunity arises, they put their gender before their race.
Exactly. 1,000% every single time, in my opinion. According to my observations from things that I've seen in the real world.
Right.
That has been my realization after the fact. It took me a little while. It took me a long while, honestly, to realize that.
Right.
But like through also, honestly, not to like plug it too much, but like honestly, like largely through dating people. I've also dated girls, but they've all been white. So through dating people and through my experiences in situations in those situations, I guess,
right,
like I have realized that it is all about maleness and femaleness, or not fitting into male or female. Like that is the defining factor. You can find assholes in every race. You can find genius, awesome knights in shining armor in every race. But but in my opinion, it is definitely deeply about male and femaleness. And it's not even really about that. Like you said, it's about power, and it's about influence and ability to, and ultimately, even at that point, it's mostly about freedom. The prohibition was ended by women who were too fucking pissed off at their piece of shit husbands who are alcoholics, and it's not even their fault. I'm not blaming the men here. I'm not blaming the men here. Like, water wasn't safe at that time. You couldn't just like drink water. And so like alcohol in the US, one of the reasons that it became like a big problem is because not everyone had access to clean water. And so you take access to clean water, and then you're like, what the fuck does that have to do with femininity and masculinity? However, here's the thing. Women had responsibilities. So they had to, no matter what, stay sober and take care of the kid. And even in that time, I'm sure they like drank whiskey and beer and whatever and still nursed their kids. But men didn't even have to think about it. They didn't even have to deal with it. It was a complete non-issue. It was not a topic in their life, but it was a big topic in the women's life. And so, like, I always remember that, like, we are humans, and yeah, we think we're awesome, but we're animals first and foremost. So like the woman's body is used for making other humans. And so we have to be like that's a nature thing that that nature has blessed us with. And it comes with certain responsibilities. And I will say that, in my opinion, like women always have more responsibilities than men do. Men can choose. They have the freedom, the power, the flexibility of choice. They can choose who are they going to stand by? Who are they going to take care of? Who are they going to claim as their own? Which has been like the massive push behind like female virginity and female genital mutilation and birth control and all that stuff. Like it has been abortions and Planned Parenthood and freedom of choice, Roe versus Wade, and all the backtracks that are, in my opinion, dumbass Supreme Court has gotten themselves into. They're backtracking on Roe versus Wade, which is one of our foundational rights as women, is to choose whether we're going to have a kid or not. But because technology has sucked for the last 3,000 years, we never had a choice like that before. Now we have multiple choices, and the men are pissed, and they want to regulate that shit. They want to decide who
because of power.
Because of power. And originally, birth control and monogamy and all that stuff was all about, like, I want to make sure that the shit that I had in my life goes down to the kid that I had in my life. Like, first of all, that's silly. And second of all, I understand it in the context of that time, but like, we're not those humans anymore. We're not, we still are.
Yeah.
But do we have to be? No. Should we be? In my opinion, no. Are we? Kind of.
In some ways, for sure. Yeah.
And when we get married, we have to take the man's name, and our kids have to take the man's name. Like, it's not a part of our real, true life anymore that we are those types of animals. We can be any type of animals that we choose to be. Certainly, we're all still animals. But, like, we make the world that we live in, whether we realize it, choose it, or not.
Yeah.
And so we determine the lives and the realities of the daughters that we have. We determine what kind of lives they're going to grow up in. It's on our shoulders, and the men aren't going to do it. No, and I may be uneducated, but I can think of no example in the world. I'm scared of saying this, but I'm just going to say it anyway. But I can't think of any example in which, like, the man has made our world more livable or more enjoyable or more free for women, unless and until, like, we pushed super freaking hard for it, where we said, like, reminds me of that show. I haven't seen it yet, but it's been on my playlist for like ever. Like Chirac, where all the black women are like, I'm not gonna fuck you unless and until you put down your guns. Like, no sex unless I get what I want. But, like, that's such a controversial thing, and it's so demonized to, like, hang sex over a man's head as a carrot for something that they want, or as a punishment for something that they don't want. However, why is it not demonized, like, that men hold that over our heads? Like, and I realize that's a state versus individual level, but let me go on the individual level. Like, I don't think that it should be demonized, because I think that it speaks to women's desires, wants, and needs.
Mm-hmm.
And I can't think of a time in history where we ever got anything that we wanted or needed unless and until we made a huge, big ass stink about it.
Exactly.
And that goes for white women, black women, everyone. Although I will say I just watched a prohibition thing on Amazon Prime also. It was about getting the right to vote. It wasn't prohibition. I said prohibition. It was about suffrage, about the right to vote. All women were doing a parade. I think it was in New York. And at the last minute, the mayor was like, if you have black women marching with you, you can't do this parade. And they were like, the fuck? And then, and again, I'm not sure that I have my details right, but the feeling, the real sense of the matter, like a man holding power over their ability to protest was real. And then they said, we're going to have black women, like, march with us, and not at the back. They're going to march, like, with us. They're going to be according to state, whichever state they came from is which state they're going to walk in or whatever. And whichever man it was in charge, maybe not the mayor, was like, that's not acceptable if that's what you're going to do. They were like, okay, so like the female issue is at hand here, not the race issue is at hand here. Like, we're marching for women. So like, if 10% of our women, our Black women, cannot march with us or whatever it is, like, then we're going to continue with that march anyway. And that was really the men winning, because they reduced the number of women who were going to participate in the march.
Right. It probably wasn't just mainly about race. Race was the tool they used to keep their power, but
to reduce the power of the women.
Right.
They used race to reduce women's power. Right. Literally, like think about that for a second. Actually, they used race. They forced white women to prioritize race over femalehood or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And then they just straight out fucked Black women. They were like, nope, can't do it. You're not welcome here. Like, you have no power here. You have no power here. And they said to the white women, you only have power here if you choose to throw the Black women away.
Which on the outside is a race issue. But
yeah, it looks like that. It looks like that.
It looks like a race issue to cover what the actual issue is, which is making sure women don't get power.
Yeah.
And men keep it.
Totally.
Which would be the same reason why they allow Black men to vote. Right? Y'all said Black people aren't human. They're a quarter, fourth, or something, not human, blah, blah, blah.
3/5.
Right. But when it came to power, decision-making power.
When it came to power, it came down to gender. Oh, men can vote even if they're Black.
Right.
But women were never counted as 3/5 of a person. They were just literally not mentioned. They weren't even in existence.
Right.
They didn't even exist. Black men were 3/5 of a person, but white women and Black women didn't exist. We were 0 of a person.
So I think it would, in a lot of ways, it would benefit Black and white women to mend the relationship. I will say there is some of the hesitation. I know we talked about before, like the simultaneous, like in superiority complex and inferiority complex with white women towards Black women. I know like a lot of Black women probably feel hesitant. Each party have their own hesitations, but because there's this like simultaneous that which you mentioned before, about how white women are both have a superiority complex and an inferiority complex towards Black women. So
yeah,
it's like, how does that play into the relationship? Can you like explain kind of like what that means, I guess? How can you have both a superiority and inferiority complex? Kind of.
I definitely said, and I definitely feel, and I've observed like in the world that white women have an inferiority and superiority complex with Black women. Again, I don't know. For myself, I feel that, and I've seen it in other people. So what I mean by that is that white women feel superior to Black women. One reason might be because, society has trained us to feel that way and to think that way. And we see the differences between our, like, the ways that we've been trained to act in society. And white culture is a lot about, like, restraint, control, making an input-output decision. If I want this, I'm going to get that. And and when I say this, I really am talking about like middle class to middle upper to upper class. It's obviously everything's different when you get super poor.
Right.
And I think that poorness is like I grew up poor, but I didn't know that I was poor. I didn't realize that I was poor. And it wasn't like real like poorness or real poverty. It could have been easily from one week to the next, but I didn't realize that. So therefore it wasn't like real. It wasn't a thing. It wasn't real to me. I didn't realize that. And I think one reason that I didn't realize that is because I'm white. And I'm going to talk first about the inferior complex. So I think that white women feel inferior to Black women because, especially these days and now, like, a big booty is appreciated, is glorified, is loved, whatever. And, you know, genetically, that's less likely to happen for us and on us, etc. That's like one tiny example. But also, like, for me and my generation, my mother always told me to be assertive, told me to be certain, told me to be comfortable, like taking up space. Yet she didn't embody that. That wasn't anything I actually saw in my life, in any of the women who were part of my growing up life, except for my dad's mom. But and so I think that white women are like jealous a little bit. We're certainly curious about, we're certainly slightly envious of, but like, I think when it gets right down to it, we're kind of jealous of the like space that a lot of Black women take up. We're jealous of the comfort that they have in taking up space, in being the person in charge, in being the person with the answers, in just like the fortitude, like the solidness was not taught to me. It was tried to be taught to me, but since she didn't have it herself, since she didn't embody it, since she did not feel it herself, like, there's no possible way that she could have really actually taught that to me. I did learn it a little bit because of my grandma, but like, we weren't really allowed to see her. We weren't really allowed to see that side of the family. And there's 4 girls in that family, and they're all hella fucking strong. So it's hilarious to me. I'm like, interesting, Dad. Thanks. But, and so we're like, it's a fucking mystery. We have no idea how to do that shit. And I think it is generational. I think that it is like, I'm not even going to say it's generational. I'm going to go backwards. I'm going to say that it's shown. It's not told. It's not taught. Right. And so, exactly. And so, like, we want that for ourselves, but we don't know how to do it. We legitimately do not know. And it is scary. It is super confusing. It's opposite to a lot of things that we have been taught. So we're jealous of it, and we think that you're ballers
but do you think we benefit from it in the long run? Because, like, is it attractive to men? Like, is that something that would deter non-Black men from pursuing a Black woman?
Oh, no. So actually, I asked my boyfriend about this before we started. I was like, well, I want to hear your thoughts on the matter. You don't have to like come up with anything genius, but just like, what are your thoughts? What are your initial, like, 15 seconds? What you got? And he's dated 2 Black guys, 2 Black girls, women, and like 5 or 6 people total. And that was the major draw. That was a major draw. That was a large part that he loved and felt comfortable with, and looked for, really, I think. And then he just happened to find those characteristics or qualities or whatever, like in Black women. And so he was like, hey, I'll date you. You want to date me? And they were like, yeah.
He was, when I met him, we lived together. He was like, he doesn't come across as a timid guy. Is he? Can you hear me? He's timid? Really? Because, I was surprised because when we lived together, he was in Philly. I think he lived in Philly. So he was like hanging around all Black people. So it was shocking. He came in the house with like Jordans. I'm like, because this is the person you've been talking about the whole time. So I didn't know he dated Black girls. Oh, really? He didn't strike me as like the timid type. So what made him like, or maybe he just wasn't afraid to. He would act the same way with any woman. I don't know.
I think he would act, I'm going to be a little bit quieter here, but I think he would act the same with any woman, but like, and it's true with, I'm going to go ahead and say most men. Like when you really get into a relationship with them and you really get to knowing them and realizing like really who they are, and they're never going to say this, they're never going to admit this in public, blah, blah, blah. But I think that most men want and feel comfortable with women being in charge. However, they don't want it to look like that to the outside public.
I agree.
That's been across the board my experience. Black guys, white guys, Indian guys, Israeli guys, Hispanic guys, only one that I've dated, but like across the board, every single person, every single man that I've dated, I would definitely say like they like to feel and think and look like they're in charge. However, really what they want is someone who's going to take care of them, take care of their problems, facilitate their life, etc. They want an assistant. They want a personal assistant to help their lives go easier, more smoothly, etc., etc.
Facts. I agree. Okay, well, we've been up here for like an hour and 40 something minutes, so we can kind of end it there. I think that was good, and maybe if we figure out something else to talk about, we can come back at another time. But yeah, I think the conversation was great. Right, because this it's 8 something there, almost 9.
8:40. You're probably way later. Sorry.
10:40, yeah. So
yeah.
Right,
I would love if like any of your watchers want to like pose questions. I would be so happy to answer them, either like writing or video or whatever.
So would you be comfortable going live where they have live questions like you see this? Like
yes.
Where they would be typing?
Okay. Yeah. I'd be ready. I'm ready now after we did this.
But I'm sure most people like they're going to say something super crazy, but yeah, but you'll be able to.
Honestly, like as a white person, I am afraid in a silly, silly way. I am afraid of receiving hate because I never had to deal with that before.
Right. Well, my subscribers that come to my lives and stuff, you won't have to deal with any of that. Obviously, most of them you won't have to deal with that.
I could take some nasty or some difficult questions.
But yeah, thank you so much, and we can schedule go live maybe But all right, I will talk to you later.
All right, bye.